Hey, Floralpreneurs, it's Alison Ellis here of realflowerbusiness.com to answer a question I see a lot. Do you have to go to floristry school to be a florist? The short answer to this is no, you do not have to go to floristry school to be a florist. However, a more truthful answer would be it kind of depends. One of the things that really factors into whether or not you need to go to floristry school is where you live, because in certain parts of the world, it is highly expected that you will go to floristry school. For example, I know floral designers in Australia, in the UK, and other parts of Europe. You have access to floristry school right in college. It's actually considered a real profession there, and you can go to school to learn. So going to floristry school when floristry school is accessible becomes much more expected, right? Because there's a path that's clear and following that path is highly encouraged. However, if you are somebody like me in the United States, floristry school is not as easily accessible here. It's not something that they had in college. Believe me, if they did, I would have done it. So we take a different route. Usually the florists that I talk to here in the US, yeah, maybe they've taken some different courses or some different accreditations, but in terms of there being one right way to become a florist, there's no such thing. So in the United States, a lot of times people learn in a shop. That's how I learned, right? I started when I was 16 years old, continued working at shops, worked at about half a dozen shops, so I could see in real life what worked, what didn't, what was consistent in these flower shops versus what was more individual flair for each shop, what was more on brand versus what was more industry norm. So pricing, for example, is one of the things that was consistent across the board in all of these shops. Customer service was not as consistent. The types of flowers and the style of our arrangements were not consistent. They were different between each company. So all that to say, there isn't one right way. And yes, if you have access to floristry school, do it. I learned in real flower shops. I went to college and I have a Bachelor of Science in Plant and Soil Science. So I know about plant pathology and soils and compost and plant physiology, right? Those are things that I learned in college, but it wasn't a floristry school. It's a different type of program. I also have a minor in small business. And I always say I'm one of those weirdos who uses my degrees in my occupation. But the truth is, what I learned in the business side of my education and what I learned in the real flower shops is so critical in addition to understanding, different parts of flowers and plants. That's all very important stuff. What I learned in real life, what I have learned through running my own business over the last 20 years, that is stuff that you just can't learn in school. So this is not to in any way diminish the importance of going to floristry school, especially if it's readily available to you. However, you're not going to learn everything you need to learn in floristry school. Here's why. Here's how you know. Because in floristry school, most of the time you are required to do some kind of internship or mentorship. Why? Because what happens in the real world is different than what happens in the classroom. We know this, right? What you learn in school and what you apply in the real world are often different. So it's very important to understand flower care, plant care, right? How do we process these flowers once they come to us? Which flowers are fragile? Which flowers might have a milky sap that can irritate your skin? Which flowers are best for corsages and boutonniere work, right? You can learn all those sorts of things. But in real world application, there are just different ways that flower shops run and run their business. And so that's why when you go to floristry school, they want you to see what's happening in the real world. It's a really important part. So your approach to learning your craft should be multi-layered. There's no such thing as one right way. You go to floristry school and that's it, right? No, even the people who say that, if you dive in a little deeper, if you question them, you say, okay, so go to floristry school. Have you learned anything on your own, in your own practical experience that you didn't learn in school, their answer would have to be a yes, okay? Because we just learn through doing. You're always going to learn better through doing. And floristry school is going to give you a foundation to some degree. But what I have learned in practical application, I have florists from Australia, from England, who've taken my flower math course, for example. Teaches you how to price for profitability. I can't tell you how many people have said, I, paid for a fully accredited floristry school and they did not teach this. They did not teach the level of detail on how to price and make sure that I made a profit. So that's why you want to seek out multiple sources for your education. Even if you go to floristry school and you mentor in a shop, I would highly encourage you to mentor in more than one shop, because the way that one florist does it isn't necessarily the right way. The way that you do it isn't necessarily the right way. The way I do it isn't the right way, because there isn't one right way. There's a lot of different ways. So my route was learning on the job, real life training, getting education around flowers and plants and the science of flowers and plants, and bolstering that with small business education so that I understood the fundamentals of how to run my business. Because I knew I wanted to have a flower shop. I knew I wanted to have a flower shop when I was in high school. Wanted to have a flower shop. But I also knew I wasn't ready and that I needed to get my ducks in a row and I needed to get some education in order to be ready to do that. And to this day, I've had my business for 20 years. I don't have a shop. I don't have a storefront. What my business turned into is perfect for me. It's my size, my home studio business. I specialize in weddings, but it wasn't my original plan. My original plan was some big, beautiful flower shop, right? So everyone has to get enough education under your belt to take a leap. Even if you go to floristry school, when you start your flower business, you will have unknown things coming at you because nobody can teach you everything. You have to seek out knowledge where you can get it. So really quickly, before I wrap up here, I did a Google search of what do you need to know to be a florist? Just for funsies, you guys, okay? So oddly enough, it didn't say flower care on there anywhere. So I'm gonna add, wrote down some notes on the back of an envelope here. I'm adding to the list, you should know about flowers and plants and how to care for flowers and plants, all right? You need to know those things. But you also need to know from the Google, florists need to pay attention to details. They need to work with their hands. They need to handle customer service, all right? So, or as I would put it, you need to create a customer service experience that wows your clients. Florists need to be innovative, problem solvers, and they need to be able to work on their own. When you read this list, when you hear this list, when you process this list, you will see most of these things are not things that you can learn in school. How to be a self-starter, how to be a problem solver, right? Working with your hands, these you learn through doing. So this is all not in any way to diss the importance of floristry school. And if you went to floristry school, I hope it was a great experience for you and I'd be happy to hear your experience with it. But if you're being honest with yourself, even if you went to floristry school, it did not teach you everything you needed to know to run your business, all right? So just know that no matter how you're coming into this, people are, wagging their finger at you. Well, if you didn't go to floristry, you should learn this in floristry school. The real honest truth is there is not one magical way to learn to be a florist. Take in information any way you can, continue to grow your skills, and most importantly, never stop learning, because going to floristry school is great, and then keep going. There is always more to learn from people who have been doing this for longer than you. And I'm going to say it out loud. That's because I've been in the industry for 27 years. Even people who haven't been doing it as long as me sometimes have something to teach, okay? So be open to learning in any way that you can. That's the longer answer. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, any comments for me, please be in touch. And keep doing beautiful work, no matter how you started your career as a florist.